G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here. Exercising my perfect liberty to read to you today from New Scientist magazine, 6th of April 2019, a publication to which I am sufficiently decadent as to collect weekly from my local newsagent. Headquartered in what's left of the inverted commas great, close quotes, British Isles. What makes New Scientist magazine worth $10 of my money every week is that although it contains advertising material, and although it is not itself a peer-reviewed, recognised, bona fide scientific journal, every one of these news items has been already published in a bona fide peer-reviewed scientific journal. So you don't have to be a scientist. You don't have to subscribe to expensive journals. If you catch the weekly New Scientist magazine, you can sort of keep up to date on all sorts of things that are happening across all sorts of fields that you might not otherwise have the time to read up on in detail. And of course, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing, but ignorance is not actually bliss. Dunning-Kruger effect. They do not know that they do not know. So in New Scientist, one can reduce the pool of the unknowns. When you get past the news and the technology, you get into the comment section, and to get printed here, the stuff may not be yet peer-reviewed, but you have to have at least graduate tertiary degree in whatever topic is being pontificated within. Here we have a psychologist writing an essay on a matter of psychology, free choice. The idea that we lack free will is built upon a mistaken sense of what it means to be a biological machine, argues Tom Stafford, University of Sheffield, UK, to explore his choice engine on Twitter. Tweet at choice engine, capitalized start. Okay, so this is one psychologist's viewpoint about an ongoing experiment which you, my viewers, can take part in if you so choose. You know, the president of the galaxy, Zaphod Beeblebrox, has been trying to tell me that we don't have any such thing as free will, so I thought this might be a good riposte. Zaphod, talk it over among yourselves. You've got two heads, have you not? Arr. A simple insect can help us understand free will and the lack of it. When a female digger wasp is ready to lay her eggs, she hunts down a cricket or similar prey, paralyzes it with a sting, drags it back to the lip of her burrow, and then enters to check for blockages. If you move the cricket a few centimetres away before she re-emerges, she will again drag it to the threshold and again leave it to check for blockages. She will do this over and over. The wasp has no choice. This mindlessly inflexible behaviour has led to the wasp, Sphex ignuminus, becoming a byword among biologists for determinism. The idea that what we think of as, quote, choice is in fact a path dictated by pre-existing factors. It is tempting to think that we aren't like the wasp, that what we do is the result of choices that are freely made. Yet the more we learn about the neuroscience of decision-making, the more Sphexish we seem to be. You hear people arguing that humans are mere biological machines trapped in cycles of behaviour that are ultimately beyond our control, that free will is just an illusion. As a cognitive scientist who studies decision-making, I disagree. Of course, humans are animals. The problem, I believe, is our misguided intuitions of what it means to be a biological machine. In an attempt to dispel some of these misconceptions, I have created an interactive essay on Twitter called The Choice Engine. Waspish behaviour. How Sphex came to be linked with free will is a long story. Charlie Darwin was studying this wasp while working on his theory of evolution. We know from his notebooks that its behaviour had a big impact on him. He wasn't aware that it would ceaselessly check its burrow. That discovery was made decades later by Nicolaas Tinbergen, the founder of ethology, the science of animal behaviour. What interested Darwin was what the wasp does once it has dragged a cricket into its burrow. It lays its eggs in the body of the immobilised but still living prey. When the larvae hatch, they eat it from the inside out. Darwin was so appalled by this behaviour that he cited it as one reason for his loss of faith. I cannot persuade myself that a beneficent and omnipotent God would have designedly created the Ichneumonidae wasp with the express intention of their feeding within living bodies, he wrote. Meanwhile, his theory wasn't just undermining God. Some took it as support for the idea that humans are mere animals and that animals are mere machines, fanning the flames of a millennia-old debate about free will. To Darwin, Sphex was emblematic of the cruelty found in nature. Tinbergen exposed it as emblematic of nature's mindlessness, but it was the philosopher Daniel Dennett of Tufts University in Massachusetts who coined the word Sphexischness to describe the nature of human choice. I should have said choices if we say they are like those of other animals. In doing so, he highlighted a common misconception that we must either reject the idea that biology influences our choices or reject the notion of free will. This fallacy is the nub of the problem. Biology certainly influences our choices, as plenty of evidence shows. Perhaps the most famous example is an experiment on free will done in the 1980s by Benjamin Libet. He showed that brain activity associated with an action occurs before the subjective feelings of choosing that action. More recently, Libet's experiment was replicated with the addition of a functional MRI scanner. This time, the researchers were able to predict some actions from brain activity up to 10 seconds before a conscious decision was taken. If the brain activity precedes the feeling of choice, some have argued all choosing is just an illusion. These results aren't the great challenge to free will that they might seem at first to be. Their apparent force relies on misguided intuitions about what it means to have free will. We tend to think in terms of the self versus other causes, and we assume that the more of these other causes that are involved in the decision-making process, the less self-determination or free will is involved. The misconception arises because we have difficulty comprehending causation in complex systems. We tend to think about cause and effect as a one-to-one relationship. A causes B. In reality, it is always a set of things happening or not happening that cause another set of things to happen or not happen. Discovering that A was involved in causing B doesn't mean that other factors aren't important too. Causality encompasses everything from your genes to your ideas about the future. As we find out new facts about genes and brains, the space in which your self exists, your free will, responsibility and choices, doesn't diminish. This is something I've been pondering for years. What really brought it home to me was interacting with a complex, chaotic system called a cellular automaton, and seeing that the simplest of rules can generate an endless, unpredictable set of behaviours. This is a grid world created on a computer with basic rules for changing each tile in the grid from black to white and vice versa. With the right rules and the right starting conditions, it can generate an infinite number of unpredictable patterns. Seeing from so simple a beginning, endless forms being born, made me realise that the fear we are sphexish is baseless. There is no need to worry that something as complex as a human can be caught in a meaningless loop. It was to explore these ideas and more that I created The Choice Engine. You can find this interactive essay by tweeting @ChoiceEngineStart, and the bot will guide you, letting you choose your own unique path through the story. following the areas that most interest you. In it, I argue that our intuitions mean that the problem of free will never feels solved, but it is. The solution is that we are part of nature. We are complex machines. If you change your intuitions about what such a machine can do and what those actions can mean, then you realize that we are free to make real, meaningful choices. Yes, our thoughts are caused by our brains, our environment, and our history. But this causal mix is unique to each individual at each moment. That explains why human behavior is so difficult to predict. My career researching the brain and how we choose has made me optimistic that we do have free will. Darwin's theory of evolution gave us a fear of being mere creatures. I simply disagree with the word, quote, mere, unquote. There is enough tangled complexity in relation to the brain and mind that we can retain a meaningful view of free will and, at the same time, recognize our nature as living machines. There you go, Zaphod of the two heads. For whatever it's worth, there's a professional psychologist at a university in England, and he says that you do have free will, and so do I. Wobbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao. Arr.